I love how Kendall from Yonder Time, aka like a week ago, said, wow, you should really get your work done before you have to travel next week. And did I do that? No, not only did I not do that, I'm currently filming and drinking caffeine at 11:30 at night before a flight. I don't know, man. I just live on the edge. If it doesn't feel like pain, it doesn't feel real, you know? Also, it took me like 12 years to put my hair in these twisty twists, and watch I take it down and it look like ass. I am emotionally hanging on by a thread if this does not come out well. This is great lighting. This is great setup. Like super professional, really well thought out. Are you feeling it, Mr. Krabs? Okay. Yeah, there's a certain level of chaos that keeps life interesting. And I always go just a little bit over. Anyway, hi, it's Kendall here. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're not new around here, what is up, Homeschool Biscuit? I got tape ins and I'm just like super paranoid that I'm just gonna like flirtily put my fingers through my hair and then just have like a track come out. But what do you guys think? I think it looks good, but I also really hate it. It's very annoying. I thought it would be a little bit less maintenance than this, but it's pretty high maintenance. Anyway, but yeah, it's me. It's Kendall. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're not new around here, whatever, biscuit. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're not new around here, what is up, Homeschool Biscuit? Today, we are returning to a bit of a cornerstone on my love of bad movies. If you follow my reviews, you would know that over the years, we've spent a lot of time looking at Wattpad garbage. I feel like a good 38% of videos that I've made movie review related in some way or another were originally fan fiction that was either about Harry Styles or Twilight. I've always likened Twilight as like a bacon number. If you go enough around modern romance, it'll probably lead back to Twilight. And one of those was the After series, which thankfully has ended. And then another series that I've kind of likened as a more self-aware version of After, which is the Beautiful Disaster series, both of which at some point or another feature friend to the channel regular Dylan Sprouse. If you remember, or if I remember even, because the movies aren't particularly memorable, Dylan Sprouse was one of the few things that I enjoyed about the After series particularly. The movies tonally are very all over the place, and I always really love like the more campy of the movies, and he was in the second one, and that one was hilarious. But he promptly left the series to go over into this, where he could be a lead in a terrible romance campy mess based off of Wattpad foolishness instead of a supporting character. I did a video on that movie, Beautiful Disaster. What is happening? What spirit has possessed my lighting? I had watched and talked about the original Beautiful Disaster, and like I said, it was a bit more of self-aware, comedy focused, as opposed to like a serious romance or whatever, the romantic drama or whatever the After sometimes want it to be. And that I loved, because y'all know I love camp. So it was this like kind of fun, glittery piece of trash that I actually enjoyed a lot more than I expected to, because again, I didn't expect it to have that level of self-awareness, because if I recall correctly, it came from Wattpad. People who make popular Wattpad, by and large, who turn into books that turn into movies, don't seem to understand that they're making fantastic garbage. And if they knew that, we would all have a much better time. But yes, I was actually pleasantly surprised by how much I actually enjoyed the last movie. But it did feel like a movie that was pretty done. It didn't need a sequel. So I was kind of like, they're making another one, which we're talking about today. I was like, I don't know if we really need that. I don't know if we have to do that. But here we are. Some of you guys were curious about it why am I scratching like the back of my shoulder? Because I'm tired. I'm just doing shit. I'm just up and doing shit. But yeah, that's what we're talking about today, because a lot of you guys were curious if the second movie is as beautifully, awfully camp as the first one, but you also didn't care enough to watch it. So it's my job. This is why they pay me the big bucks, man. Speaking of which, we're gonna send it over to ad roll Kenny, because, you know, bills. I gotta pay some bills before I go on vacation, honey. I need a break from Michigan. This place doesn't know what it wants. It's having an identity crisis, and it's like, just give me time to figure out if I'm spring or winter or summer. I don't know. I'm just going through a lot. And it's like, I understand, baby, but you figure that out by yourself. I'm going to Cali for a few days. That would be great. Hello everyone, it's Ad Roll. It's the same day. Hello everyone, it's Ad Roll Kenny, and today's video is sponsored by HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit delivery service that offers you fresh, delicious, and healthy meals delivered straight to the comfort of your own home. Pre-portioned, pre-shopped for, pre-thought out, planned out recipe cards that are easy to follow and get you a meal on the table in give or take 30 minutes, sometimes less than that, with those speedy lunches, or sometimes they have like partially made things. Like there was a flatbread that I'm like interested in. I'm like, ooh. They also have really cool add-ons like breakfast things. You can add on proteins, desserts. Great way to get out of recipe ruts, because I cook the same 3 things or 3 combinations of things. Save some money because it's cheaper than going out, and also saves you time because by the time you're done cooking this, it'll most likely be done before delivery gets there. And most importantly for me, who hates a large grocery store, it means I get to go less. Because Lord knows I hate a grocery store. Go to HelloFresh.com and use code KennieSweet to get free dessert for life. That's 1 dessert per box while your subscription is active. That's HelloFresh.com. Use code KennieSweet for free dessert for life. Big thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get on to the debauchery. So of course, if you haven't seen the first video or the first movie at all, then I will link that down below for you. If you don't recall, because honestly, I didn't. They all blend together. I didn't even remember what the fuck. I knew Dylan Sprice was in it, and I knew it was bad, but also fun bad. But the original movie is the story of 2 college students, early college students, like freshman, sophomore. One named Travis, who is the gruff, rough and tumble bad boy with a big who is an underground MMA fighter, dirty, womanizing bad boy who falls in love with Abby, the goody, clean, quote unquote, good girl with a dark past. We do a good old enemies to friends to lovers arc, and now this movie follows them right after the end of the last movie, where they had made a lot of money in Vegas because she's really good at poker, and escaped a mafia boss who was working with her father to trick her into making them a lot of money. Again, there was a self-awareness of the first movie that I really appreciated, because it was kind of just like a fun, campy time. There was a lot of like self-deprecating jokes, because the movie would reference after another movie that's made in the same production company in disparaging ways, like little jokes about it. It was very funny because, again, Dylan Sprouse was in the other movie, and that was really refreshing for these Wattpad movies, because again, they take themselves really seriously. They think they're real movies a lot of times, and I just wish more of them were just like, we know we're like, again, a glittery lump of turd. I personally would much more appreciate that. And I gotta say, even spoiling before we really go into specifics, this movie does not have anywhere near the magic of the first one, partially because the first movie had a plot. Don't get me wrong, I had like an odd laugh here or there, but for the most part, this movie is nowhere near as alluring as the first one, because it's not, a lot of shit happens but nothing at the same time. I even like questioned whether or not I even wanted to do a video on this, but I did find it perplexing in a way that I thought would be a fun time to figure out why it's so bad. Like, that's partially why we watch terrible media, at least why I do. It's like a fun mental puzzle. Like, I know it's terrible, but why? And this is why we're doing this video, to talk about all the ways in which this movie is just painful. Like, there was no point, no purpose, no goal in this movie, really. It was just watching a vlog of 2 people who keep arguing and getting back together and arguing and getting back together, but there's no thing. There's no thing that happens, if that makes sense. Nothing really happens. It's just 2 people arguing while like a narrator with a vaguely thick accent. He kind of sounds like the Book of Love from It Takes Two.
I'm killing it! Can't you see my hip gyrations? Woo!
Oh, please stop.
Oh, please.
Is just like kind of narrating what's happening, but because nothing's happening, he doesn't really have a purpose either. No one builds personalities in this. Like, no one builds relationships in this. No one is like fleshed out as a human. Honestly, it feels like a movie that was made with no script. They just threw people on a set and said, do stuff that's vaguely funny. We'll put a lot of editing and kind of like Frankenstein it together to make something that is an hour and a half long, which, my God, they did not have to do that. I wonder what was the contract here, yeah? And again, I consider not even making a video on this because, again, it is quite difficult to make a video on nothing. But alas, being that also I sat there and watched it twice, I figure I need to make that worth it, Because I watched it the first time and I thought I must have missed something because nothing happened. Like I must have missed something along the way. Maybe I was making coffee, but no, that's what it feels like. The whole movie is, did I make coffee for an hour and a half and nothing happened? And it's like, essentially, yeah, you watch it a second time, you realize, oh, it's just, again, Frankensteinian crocheting of events that all bring us to an end, but because there was no beginning or middle, like who cares? But also I do think there's some like random scenes of this movie that one did make me laugh and would be very funny out of context. I will use them for memes. Maybe that's it. The whole movie felt like it was just a bunch of cobbled together moments made strictly to be clips that would be made into like reactions on Twitter. Cheap. But yeah, anyway, this is Beautiful Wedding is the title, by the way. I don't know if I even said that. Beautiful Wedding, aka Beautiful Disaster 2, 2024. So again, this movie begins where the last movie ended, and the whole beginning of the movie is just a recap of that. Again, if you want to watch my first video or you feel that you need to watch that first video to understand what's going on here, honestly, truly, you're no more informed by watching the last video because, again, this is just a collage of shit, throwing shit at the wall and just hoping to make a movie at the end of it. But again, our main characters are Abby and Travis. And when this movie starts off, they are talking with a priest and they seem to be in some foreign country where they speak Spanish, and come to find out they are in Mexico. And they're talking to this priest about how rough their relationship is right now. It's been really, really hard. And then we rewind 6 days prior to this conversation to explain how we got here. So apparently, at the end of the last movie, they celebrated their big winnings in Vegas by getting very, very drunk. And during that celebration, they got so drunk that she got a tattoo that is basically newlywed or something like that, happily married or something like that on her body. And they come to find out after looking at a very conveniently placed slideshow of the day prior that they had gotten married in like a good old Elvis like cheapo wedding in Vegas. And now they're here the next morning, barely cognizant of what day and what time it is, and they're like, oh shit, we're married. And it would seem, theoretically, you would think like in a movie where that happens, that it would be some like an emotional unpacking we would do in regards to waking up, even if it's a comedy, waking up and finding out like, oh, we're married. No, Travis goes straight into like, hey, this isn't probably how I would have done it, but like, let's get married. Like, I'm gonna propose to you right here. And then she projectile vomits in his face, which is a callback to the first movie, unfortunately. That's one thing we could have done without. Now, like I said, this isn't like a movie, so I think it's best to think of the movie as just clips of shit happening. So don't ask too many questions. You're gonna make yourself upset. Just enjoy the ride. Just know that things be happening. And I'm saying this partially to myself as well, because that is very difficult for me to do, to just let things be. But yes, they are currently in Vegas when they wake up. It is Abby and Travis, who are now newlywed, as well as Travis's cousin, Shep, and Shep's girlfriend, America, who is Abby's best friend. It doesn't matter all that much because, again, no personhood, no storyline, no real relationships build, but just so that you know where you are. At this moment, Abby ends up getting a call from Benny, and Benny was the bad drug, was he a drug dealer? He was like a gambling gangster guy from the last movie. He was the one that was trying to trick Abby into making all this money for him, and he was in cahoots with her dad, who's a piece of shit. So he's calling because essentially they had made off with money that had been made in regards to a fight. So instead of even acknowledging him at all, they decide that they're going to make a flea run for it to Mexico. Now, they don't really say these words. That's why I was confused. It felt like several scenes in between were missing. Like straight up the like, hey, this is going to happen. Let's go to Mexico. Why Mexico? There was no conversation about that. It's just they have this phone call. They think someone's breaking into the hotel, so they beat him up and waterboard him. And then the next scene, they're going to Mexico. and they're getting like a pep talk from like a Mr. T looking guy, whatever. And they're going to take a shoddily constructed helicopter from Vegas to Mexico. Now, though this is a bit of an unconventional honeymoon of sorts, so too is their marriage unconventional, so why not? So they take this as an opportunity to go to a villa and also have their honeymoon. And when they get there, they're greeted by a guy who apparently is named Sancho according to CC's. However, they don't really introduce him, nor again give him any importance, but he just keeps showing up. I assume he works at the resort, but he ends up being like a buddy to the crew, and they don't make any sense of it. I was like, who the f is Dr. Hakeem here? But they're just like, okay, yeah, the guy. But yeah, they get settled. And before they get settled, Abby ends up recognizing a very hot shirtless guy who's on the resort, and he will come up later. And I was like, oh, okay, so we're going to do the stereotypical sequel to one of these movies where you get like a vaguely ethnic guy to be the like romantic rival to the original main male character so that he realizes that someone could take his girl. And he's usually better than the first guy, and he's usually more attractive than the first guy. Spoiler alert, I believe so, but that's neither here nor there. But the thing is, because there's no, again, nobody wrote anything. I don't think there was a script on set. He's just like in the movie. I'm getting ahead of myself. But yes, again, though this isn't the most like conventional honeymoon setting, they do try to take that time to really make the most of it. But both of them end up like shooting each other and themselves in the foot. Like they try to have a dinner, really talking about like unpacking that they got married. And instead of actually doing that, Abby writes down a pros and cons list of whether or not they should stay married, which is very funny. That's kind of funny. I'm sorry. She was like, I thought if I decorated it, it wouldn't be so bad that I said, maybe we shouldn't be together wedding wise. Like maybe we should keep dating, but like let's not be married. And he seems to be like pretty offended by that. He's like, why would you say that? But instead of acknowledging that, he's more focused on the fact that the NBA finals are on. And so he lies in the middle of their first honeymoon dinner and says, I'm so sick, I need to go to the bathroom. And while he's there, he's just cheering on the NBA finals. So great.
Come on, baby, come on! Come on here! Pull my back! Okay. Fucking get me, baby!
Are you okay?
Great. But they make up, blah, 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 and dance, blah, 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 go to the beach, blah, blah, blah. They, again, befriend the random old guy at the resort, so they get reined in one day and they're all playing like board games, Twister and charades, blah, blah, blah. At some point, this is an event where we learn that Abby always wanted to move to Paris, and Travis is like, well, how would I be able to finish my studies or follow in my career aspirations if we move to Paris? And she was like, well, I met you 3 months ago. That wasn't a consideration of mine. I also didn't plan to marry you, so we're just kind of here. Also during this conversation, they end up doing Never Have I Ever, and Travis kind of talks about his sexual escapades, and that makes her uncomfortable. So again, here we go. By the way, this is just the reoccurring pattern of this movie because, again, there is no plot. I cannot stress that enough. It's just them having like a disagreement coming back together, a disagreement coming back together, a disagreement coming back together. And it's like, yeah, I guess that's, even though this is, again, very like exaggerated and hyperbolic and campy, that's just, I don't give a f enough about your relationship to like follow you on those ups and downs, those hills and valleys and whatnot of your relationship, especially with no plot. Anyway, but they make up and he's like, I don't want to get an annulment because who do you know that's still together after they get an annulment? And I'm like, who do you know that got married while drunk in Vegas? Like, it's not like y'all planned a wedding or whatever. Y'all just got really too turnt and woke up shackled. Like, I can't think of a better word than that. Like, you could definitely annul that and stay together if you really wanted to. But yes, back to our new love rival. His name is Miguel, and he just appears. Again, everything just happens, materializes. One day you see him shirtless, and the next thing you know, him and Abby are best friends, and they're they're juggling together. And we didn't see them talk for the first time. We didn't see them interact for the first time. We didn't see them become friends at all or interact at all. Nothing. But before you know it, they're outside laughing, yucking it up. And here comes Travis being like, oh, I'm going to go out there and literally swing. Now, since he's jealous, we have to do Abby getting jealous. So they end up at a nude beach accidentally, and two girls go up to Travis and they're flirting with him very subtly. I've never seen more subtle flirting in my life.
Debes tener muchos amigos.
Like, oh my God, how did he even catch it? So obviously they're talking. Abby's the only one of them that doesn't speak Spanish at all. So she's just seeing them go topless. And she's like, and he's just like asking where their friend is. And he's like, what the hell? And so she gets jealous. And so she runs out and takes her top off. And he's like, don't have your titties out. And she's like, I'm going to take my titties out. You can't stop me from taking my titties out. And then when Travis starts to notice that guys on the beach notice that she has titties, he gets cartoonishly upset and starts to brawl on the beach. That lands them in prison. Both of them in prison. Now, around this time, I started to ask, when is the movie gonna start? Like, nothing's happened. It's just, I hate when movies do this. This is a particularly painful way to make film. Funny story. I was actually hanging out with a friend of mine and I introduced him to Neil Breen. Thank me. I'm doing God's work, literally cyber alien Jesus's work. And I made him watch Faithful Findings and he was so upset. I made him watch Faithful Findings and Twisted Pair. And particularly Twisted Pair really, really offended him. He was like, how dare he make a movie that isn't a movie? I was like, and maybe that's it. I even find in a weird way this movie more painful. Because I expect garbage from Neil Breen. I don't know what I expected from this. Honestly, I did expect more continuity, but all right. So they're in jail. The love doctor comes out. The guy, I call her Dr. Hakeem, so his name gonna be Dr. Hakeem in this shit. He's a book in a video game where he's just like, I'm the book of love. I'm gonna get you back together.
Where there is love, no distance is too far.
Anyway, Dr. Hakeem or whatever the his name is posts their bail and they are able to get out of jail, but they argue again, Abby and Travis. This, I will say, is one of those moments where it was funny out of context. Like, it would have been a really funny meme, and I do plan to use it as a meme in the future. Like, titties!
If you say the T word, I am jumping out of this car, Travis, and out of your life.
Don't show your titties. Titties, titties, titties,
Oh,
titties,
fuck you,
titties,
Travis,
titties,
man.
titties,
Fuck
titties,
you.
titties.
She runs away, she runs off, and Dr. Hakeem is like, you gotta let her be free, you're suffocating her, like, let the love flow. And Miguel, who has not said a sentence yet, I don't think, runs after her, being her best friend now. And good, because when she gets into the alleyway, she ends up seeing a bunch of guys who are looking at her a little scary, but here comes Miguel, who's like, be off, go away, blah. He seems to have some type of standing in the community, so they're like, okay, some clout, some importance, so they go off and on their way. Also, meanwhile, Abby's best friend starts yelling at Travis about how he's gonna ruin their relationship because you're pushing her away and you're suffocating her and blah, blah, blah. For once, we get a bit of a backstory. Not a good one, not a well fleshed out one or at all illuminating in anyone's character, but we get a mild backstory for Miguel, which is essentially he came from a wealthy family and they lost all of that wealth when his father died, who wasn't a great person, but he lost everything, so they had to build themselves back up. And during that time, he was a very angry child and he would run the streets much like those kids in the alleyway. And that was all until he found, or he heard the calling, like the calling. He became to the priesthood. He became a priest, and he tells us all that for no reason, really, just so he can tell Abby, you know, you and Travis need to work it out. Now, I will say this is a particularly interesting aspect of this movie because, again, there's no personhood, there's no real things that happen. Like, there's no story or plot or connection between people that happen. So I'm so befuddled to hear, and you will hear all over the place, everyone at some point or another says to Abby and or Travis, you guys are in love. This is a love that's never been seen before, a love that you just don't throw away. Y'all gotta work it out. Don't know what the they're talking about. I don't know what movie they saw last time or this time, but they like, yep, you gotta work that shit out, man. Pack it up. So Abby and Travis make up again, and they're like, maybe we should have a break away from each other a little bit. Like, you have a bachelor party, I'll have my bachelorette party, since we didn't get a chance to do that. Now that they're gonna do this bachelorette party, Travis invites his brothers down because he just kind of throws it on him. Hey, by the way, I'm married and now we're doing my bachelor party backwards. So they fly down to Mexico, blah, blah, blah. America and Shep start fighting for some reason, blah, blah, blah. If you think I don't give a fuck about Abby and Travis, I sure as hell don't give a shit about United States and sheep over here. I don't give a fuck. So they separate. The girls go off. They go to a little spa day, end up meeting like a lady boss, woman boss. Girl boss is a little inappropriate. She's matured boss, lady boss. They meet for like 5 seconds and she's very, very like harness the power of the, you know, don't do things for him, do things for you, which I'm not against. But she is giving very like coochie MLM. But yeah, she befriends her and her MLM coochie coalition. She also randomly wrestles either a child or a person with dwarfism. I think canonically she's supposed to be someone with dwarfism. They call her Thumbelina though. That's not great. And they each other up. They go off, breaking bones, punching knees. It's wild, but it's also random and had no lead up at all and no let down. It was, again, it's just shit happening. I didn't even tell you about the cockfights because why? I honestly don't need to tell you. Well, I guess I don't need to tell you about any of this. There's a subplot where the sheep guy ends up stealing a bunch of cocks that were gonna be in a cockfight, and he didn't realize that they were trained to be fighters, and so they fought each other anyway. He was attacked in the barreling hysteria of feathers, but who cares? Anyway, blah, 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 cockfights, blah, blah, blah. Oh, the girls that was like, titties, you see my titties? They end up coming to the bachelor party and end up saying, you want to see your titties? Titties. Speaking of titties, girl, I was complaining on Twitter that I found out that I am a double/triple D now. I really thought I got skipped because I come from, both sides of my family come from big titty women with like real big titties. Like, whoa, like how do you get through the door type titties, right? And I was like, oh, thank God I got skipped. I was just in the back of the line. Anyway, but they're like, titties, here's my titties. And he's like, I'm married, I'm not interested. But instead, they end up stealing his phone. And when Abby FaceTimes him, they're like, oh, then you see my titties. Everybody see my titties. And so Abby's upset about that. So she's like, okay, I'm gonna make him jealous. And come to find out, MLM Coochie Coalition, the leader, her son is Parker, which is the guy that she considered dating in the first movie. The one between the doctor, the guy that was gonna be normal. And not Travis, who's like all this trauma and all this, like, I don't need all this trouble. I'm going to go with the doctor. That's her son. So come to find out, he's also at the resort. I couldn't think of what it was called. He's also at the resort. So she sneaks into his room while she's very, very drunk after fighting a lucha libre. And she gets in the bed, takes selfies with him to make it look like they slept together so she can make Travis jealous. She passes out there and Travis ends up seeing her in the bed after following her location. Chaos ensues. What the is this? And then we are sent back to the beginning of the movie where they're talking to Miguel. And I'm like, you can't do that. That's not fair. You can't do a return to center if nothing happened. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, let's show you how we got here. Like just stuff happened, but no story happened. So I'm sitting here like, what the Okay, anyway, I am so scared. Like there's a tape at the back of my neck over here that I'm just like, oh my God, it's gonna come out one day, ain't it? Just in the middle of me talking to someone, hi. As I'm flirting with someone like, oh my God, hi. Anyway, but yeah, they're talking to Miguel and I don't know if this is supposed to be like a confessional or like counseling. I think it's just these two random white people from America came into this man's house and were like, oh, you're a priest? Here, listen to my problem. Well, I guess they could just be friends, but again, we've not seen them become friends. So like, it's just them speaking at this random priest. But Abby and Trevor are like, okay, well, maybe there's nothing worth fighting for anymore. And so they like, oh my God, crying. Oh my God, our relationship. This is torturous. I don't know. It's just funny that this is kind of like a confessional considering they met that guy like 4 days ago. And again, we've not seen any humanity much of him other than him saying vaguely, yeah, I became a priest because I had a rough upbringing. Anyway, in Mexico, here comes Benny, the bad guy from the first movie. And Abby notices him, so she tackles him while it's raining and they fall in mud. And there's a fight and then like a makeup chat afterwards. Like, I'm sorry for ruining your life. I'm sorry for ruining your life. Y'all weren't bickering. He put a hit out on you. Like, what? Like, this isn't like, oh, I'm sorry. you can also like cheesecake. Like, this isn't like a, okay, pineapple on pizza isn't the end of the world. Like, he was trying to kill you, but okay, all right. But again, he's another one of those people that are like, the love that you feel with that dude, Travis, is like something that I've never seen before. And it's something that must be maintained and must be protected. You go out and get your man.
Oh, yeah, right, Miss Wisdom in 19. You don't see what's staring you right in the face. Love.
Meanwhile, Travis's brothers are saying essentially the same thing to him, saying like, hey, don't ruin this, bitch. That's your girl. That's your wife. And then essentially they just see each other after Travis floats to the floor at one point for some reason. And then they make up, they have a proper wedding, and they spin the camera around. And I was like, oh, wow, that was a nothing ass movie. I thinking it was the end. And it was basically, but they went on for another like 10 minutes just doing shit. Because in fairness, that was the whole film. Like, again, there's the blurry B plot of Argentina and Shepard, or whatever his name is, getting back together or whatever. But I don't care. Again, this is actually a remarkably nothing movie. I don't think I've seen a whole lot of movies that had no plot in such a way. That is the end of the movie. I know you're probably sitting there like, what, that's it? Yes. Yes. That is what, that is, that is the film. And again, it feels like they just dropped the people from the first movie in like almost a scavenger hunt. It felt like a college project, like a freshman year film project where you just put people together and said, no scripts, just vibes, and just send them out into the wild and see what you get back. Literally, like, do some shit and we'll make a movie out of it. Which, hey, if y'all got paid, I like it. But, yeah, shit, if this is all I gotta do, I might get into acting. Our love, no, Trevor! But yeah, that's all for today, folks. Sorry I couldn't give y'all more interesting. I expected there to be more to this movie. Because I'm working on a longer video right now. Hint, there's a book involved. I don't know if that'll be next week's video, so we'll see. But I'm working on a man who's very controversial in the urban book space. Hint, hint. And I have finally read one of his works and I have opinions and I want to share them with you, but I need time to make that script. So instead we watched some shit that was from Wattpad. If you saw either of the movies, I want to know your opinions, especially if you saw this one, or are you happy that I watched it for you so you don't have to? I know, girl. Thank you. Thank you. Run that watch time up. Thank y'all. Baby, I did a service. I did a good deed. If you like this video, feel free to like this video. Follow me on all my social media, Instagram and Twitter, both of which are KennieJD. Also, follow me over on Connect the Dots, where I co-host a podcast with Sean Peckus, and we interview actual celebrities, like people that are like did shit, be way more famous than me, and way more money. So if you would like to see me awkwardly talk to people in person, like not just like at a screen, like maybe you should consider looking at any of those episodes. That'd be awesome. What else? I feel like there's something else I was supposed to say and I don't know what it is. But all right. And I'll see you guys next time.